That's the thing. Like I ask all the questions. So narrative should always come first. And that will dictate, because the narrative is the authentic personality. It's it's values and what you believe in and all of that. That's the narrative, right? So you always look to the narrative first before you create the image or the product and the service. And usually people create the service and the product first because that's what they've spent their whole lives on, right? That's what they want to do. So anyways, I hate to hear that, but that is exactly why I wrote the book, because I don't want people to waste money.
This is Get Unstuck Podcast, a podcast for entrepreneurs who prioritize their life first, business second. I'm Mudita Panmuk, your host, who dedicates my life to designing and building a business that supports lifestyle. We will learn together from entrepreneurs around the world how they overcome their life challenges, their business obstacles, and yet still get unstuck from the hamster wheel of burying themselves into their business. Because time is the number one commodity in the world that you cannot get back once it's gone. So let's shorten the learning curve and see how can we prioritize better. Let's get unstuck. Hi, Get Unstuck Nation. Our guest today turned people into brand names. And yeah, that's literally it. So please welcome Lola Bruce, founder and CEO of the Brand Management Co. to Get Unstuck Podcast today. I'm so excited. So hi, Lola. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm like, wow. We were talking about it offline that you just got a puppy and like everything just like moving around you.
Yeah, it's a lot right now. No sleep. It's a challenge. 3-year-old, 6-year-old, and now an 8-week-old puppy. So yeah,
8
it's
weeks.
a lot.
Oh,
8 weeks. Yep. 3, and she's only been here for 3 days. So we're right in the middle of it. Yep.
You're going to have lots of fun. So, I mean, how did you get into the branding journey even?
Well, my background is the music industry. I was handling artist development and marketing for Sony Sony Music Entertainment for Arista RCA Nashville. And I was there for about 10 years, so a decade. And working with global household names, right? Carrie Underwood's, Brad Paisley's, Brooks and Dunn's, Miranda Lambert's, like all of these people that are brands, right? And when I left the label to start my consultancy, helping independent artists and musicians, I realized that they would come to the table with their investments, ready to go, and they would just have their album already created, i.e. their product, and then they would want to just push it out into the marketplace and spend $50,000-$60,000, etc. And I was there doing all of that. And then when, push comes to shove, we realize after they've already wasted all this money that there was no brand to create a foundation. So even if they had like one hit, right? Even if they had this great reaction to this specific album, there was nothing there to create a long-term business. And so I started meeting with a lot of people and realizing that there was just such a disconnect with people understanding the difference between marketing and branding. And so I always say that marketing is what you want to say for the next 20 days. Branding is what you want to say for the next 20 years. So if you don't have the foundation of the house set there for 20 years, right? That foundation is supposed to dictate what you do on the marketing strategy side. You can have dozens of different marketing strategies happening at any given time, right? All of those need to be based on what that brand is. And so it's very easy to get muddled information out there. You're communicating differently in certain aspects, and the consumer just gets confused, or they just move on. They just don't connect, right? So basically that's kind of how I started. That's how I wrote the book, because then I was like, well, there needs to be some help out there in the marketplace for people who cannot afford $30,000 branding agency to come in and do this for them, right? So I wrote the book, From Individual to Empire, a guide to developing, do I even know the title? A guide to building an authentic and powerful brand. Wow, it's been so long since I've said the tagline, like the subtitle. Anyways, and so that book was, it took me 5 years to write it. I went back and I got a master's degree. Yeah, I started teaching at colleges and universities. So I taught consumer behavior at SMU while I was getting my master's in creative writing and communications. So it was a dual master's, and how to write a book that's entertaining, right? Because that's not something I knew how to do. I knew what I wanted to put in it, and I knew the expertise that I wanted to, help with, but I didn't know how to make it entertaining and in a correct way. So yeah, it took me 5 years to write it. And it's been so long too. Sometimes when people ask me things, I'm like, was that in there? Yeah, okay, it was. It's like so long ago. But anyways, and so when the book came out, that's when I started expanding into other industries, because the book started out to be about musicians and about the people I had worked with, right? But the reality is the same principles apply to any person who is the face of their business. So authors, coaches, content creators. I call it influencer branding instead of personal branding, because it's taking a personal brand and then turning it into a business brand, right? So like I'm trying to help somebody, a person, a face, turn into a Nike swoosh, like a Martha Stewart or a Taylor Swift, and these are people that I highlight throughout the book. So, I mean, that's a long answer, but it is the trajectory of how I got into this very specific branding niche.
No, I enjoy. I can just listen to you speaking all day, actually. That's going to be like
it's because when you geek out over something like I do, like people just love to geek out with you, so I can't help myself.
I can't help but wonder, back in the days, the easiest people to sell actually would be those artists, because they have fan base, right?
If they have a fan base. What
If
happens
they
when
have
they
a fan base.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like think about it, like before we have followers, before we have social media, right? They usually have like of course, supporters of fan base that like would buy their concert tickets or like souvenirs or like anything that would support their product line and so on, which means that they have a brand established already.
So that's the important key, right? So the way that the Beatles did it, the way that, everybody from Dave Matthews Band, like they start playing around in a small area of the country, wherever they are, and they start building up live show fan bases, right? Or if people are coming and buying tickets, then they're going to buy the albums. Okay. So that is how it used to be done. It's not done that way anymore. And I would say Texas is a little unique, because there is the venues are struggling, but there is a decent touring market of the smaller club size venues around Texas. But it's a really hard thing to do, to get to build up enough business to be taken onto a major label. And that's the key, because all a major label is a bank. They just are going to finance your project. That's it. That's all they do. So if you want to go finance your own self, which most people do at this point, you have to understand that you are a business and you have a product, and you need to figure out multiple revenue streams. It's not, nobody's buying the actual album anymore. So what are those other revenue streams? And this is true for everything, right? So I have like 2 clients who are musicians right now, but I also have a crowdfunding portal. I'm trying to think. In the last year, I've worked with national heroes, actresses, sculptors, TV reporters, so many different walks of life, CEOs of corporations who are trying to become the face of, right? So even if you're on any of those different trajectories, if you're the face that is being sold, you need to have a business plan in place, a brand guidelines, brand kits, what's the story, what's the narrative, what's the image, and all of that. How does it all come together? And then build out multiple revenue streams, just like any other business would. So I think that was a big lesson that a lot of independent artists need to hear.
How can someone that already decided that, okay, this is the vision of the brand that I would move forward to, but how can I stick to it for a long time and not keep changing?
So when I work with a client, we do an audit process. Very first thing we do. So we do the audit phase first, and then we do the brand strategy, and then we do the implementation phase. And it takes about 5 months to do from start to finish. But that audit phase, I ask everything. I will say this. I recently guessed what the client drove what car they drove based off of how well I knew them in that report. I find out everything. It's obviously my proprietary questionnaire that I have developed over 15 years now, but I will ask everything about childhood experiences, family life, business questions, their goals, their dreams, their aspirations, what they want to leave for the world. You know, I mean, I literally ask everything. And at the same time, I'm also looking out to the marketplace to see what's already out there on the market for this person. And then what's the competition out in the marketplace, etc. That all happens in that audit phase. And what I'm doing when I start to develop the brand is I'm trying to figure out what key elements are that are rising to the top, right? What key elements are true today as it was 20 years ago for that person? Because the likelihood that it's going to be true 20 years from now is high, right? So I'm trying to find the through lines and the themes, etc., that are not going to change whether that person moves across the world or gets married or has kids or changes career paths even. So I have some people that decide not to do what they were doing, but yet they're able to pivot because their brand pillars are so strong that it still keeps their audience, right? Yeah. So that's the goal, right? No matter what that narrative changes, if you know that those key pillars and you're deeply rooted in those and you make all your marketing decisions based off of those, then you can really have the freedom to do whatever you want. And that is also something that creative entrepreneurs struggle with a lot because they feel like, oh God, I have to be the same, from today on forever. And I have to be consistent to get brand loyalty, right? We all know that, but they feel like their creativity is stifled when they get faced with that. And it's just not true. Like, yes, there are key elements that have to be the same and remain the same throughout everything, but you can change anything else about you, right? And you're still on brand. And that's the goal.
Because things change.
Example is like Pink with pink hair, right?
Right.
She went blonde. That didn't change her core pillars. Taylor Swift went from country to pop. It did not change her. And a lot of people it does, right? But her core pillars did not get changed. And that's actually one of the case studies that we focus on Taylor Swift a little bit in the book. So that is one of the case studies that I go through and explain why she became so powerful, because that's another thing about this book is everybody's talking about why influencers are they're all talking about how influencers are powerful, but they're not talking about how they become powerful, right? So that's what I'm trying to do, is trying to help people figure out what they need to lean into in order to create something that can be taken into an empire, like a Taylor Swift empire.
Can we touch about that a little bit? Like these days, especially like social media era, let's say, like in the world that people trying to get viral every single day to get more eyeballs.
Yep.
What is it about that it should be different when we should stick on the brand and really building our brand and stick to what we are doing and moving forward with the mission instead of keep doing the not knowing what is going to happen?
Well, I mean, I think that's the key of, again, your marketing strategies can be anything. Anything you dream up can come in marketing, right? Brand, as long as you're rooted in the brand and the voice is the same, the tone is the same, the imagery, the visual elements are the same, that's what you really need to take into account. But, if you're talking about somebody like Taylor Swift, I mean, she was on MySpace before, you know what I mean? Like she had developed that from the very beginning, where she was one of the only artists at the time who was on that platform, which was the first real social media platform, right? And responding to every single person and making that direct connection with her fans, right? And she still does that now. She just does it at a different level, right? So, there was a Swiftmas that she did a couple years ago where she went around to some of her fans and actually showed up at their homes and delivered Christmas presents, So, yeah, that still is happening, and that's still a core piece of her brand, is that direct connection. So, it doesn't matter what platform you choose or what platform you're on or how. Some people are not even on social media, right? Some people just choose to use other communication channels. So you don't have to have, I mean, George Clooney, right? He's one of the most important influencers in the world, right? But he's not even on social media. So you have to think about how they're getting their message across or how they're presenting themselves, as well as where they are presenting themselves.
Do you really able to digest this thing by yourself? Like as in starting a business, or like as an artist, or like as a creator or aspiring entrepreneur? Do you really able to like starting to figure out like the brand design, or like starting somewhere by yourself?
Do you mean like anybody?
Yeah, anybody.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, I do think it's complicated. You know, we were talking earlier, it's like I have a checklist that's available on my website that I just created. And the thing that I hear a lot is that people get confused at when they're supposed to do things at what phase, right? And then they get the marketing stuff confused with branding. So they want to incorporate marketing, like i.e. social media, things like that, into the branding when that should be later down the road, right? So I created a checklist that kind of follows what pretty much follows what I offer to my clients, and how I take my clients through the process. And it's just a nice little one sheet that helps people work it out on their own, figure it out on their own, figure out what those brand pillars are, and figure out how it needs to show up in their image and their narrative and their products and their services. So, and then of course in the book, I also have the Venn diagram, the brand matrix, which is my proprietary, it's a Venn diagram that showcases how image, narrative, and product and service all need to converge into what that brand looks like. So everything out in the outer circles can change. Those don't have to be, static, but the core things in the middle that will represent the image, the narrative, and the product and service at the same time, that's what you want. So yeah, there's lots of exercises in the book, and there's lots of like steps that at the end of every chapter, there's a what's next section with okay, before you move on to the next chapter, you should do X, Y, Z, and work through those so that you get to the next chapter and you know what to do next. So I think it's a lot of help with the process and the organization of it so that people, especially creatives, right? We want to jump around and we want to jump everywhere. That reminds me of this, so it just kind of helps people streamline the process. But yeah, absolutely. Anybody can do it.
Yeah. Seems like you have like give us a bite-sized pieces already to follow through. Because like, if not, it's going to be all over the place, to be honest. Like,
right.
Many times that like thinking about it, like only just like myself, like this branding, I have rebrand 3 times already, I think. Yeah.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah, 3 times.
That's not what I want to hear.
And if you have seen the very first version of the logo, it's totally different. Even the second version is like very secretive. Like I think I was influenced by the environment that I was in, and also the book that I was reading at that time that influenced to the main message somehow, that I was like, I'm not even understand myself at that time why I decided to do it.
That's the thing. Like I ask all the questions. So narrative should always come first, and that will dictate, because the narrative is the authentic personality. It's the it's the, the values and what you believe in and all of that. That's the narrative, right? So you always look to the narrative first before you create the image or the product and the service. And usually people create the service and the product first because that's what they've spent their whole lives on, right? That's what they want to do. So anyways, I hate to hear that, but that is exactly why I wrote the book, because I don't want people to waste money. Like I'm trying to save people thousands and thousands of dollars so you don't have to rebrand. And if you do have to rebrand because something drastic happens in the marketplace that you can't control, or if something drastic happens to you that you can't control, right? That I have like 2 whole chapters on how to evolve through any changes. Like Martha Stewart is the evolution chapter, because I mean, jail, what else has she done recently that she's the Snoop Dogg,
Oh, right.
collaboration. There's just a lot of things that she has done, but the core pillars still are there, right? So marketing wise, she's been able to do different marketing strategies, hit different target audiences, grow, change, whatever. Well, sorry, I should not say change. I make it very clear in the book. Yeah, change bad. I make it very clear in the book that change is not good. Evolution, though, is necessary. Like there's a difference. But, it's like, I also share this in the book is that, the Pepsi logo, for instance, from 1800s to today, it's gone through 1,000 different, well, maybe not 1,000, but like 20 different versions of what that logo looks like. The key is that it's slow steps, right? It's this like little ladder that connects the through line, right? But if you take a step back and you look at the 1800 version and then right next to, right, and you don't see all the little steps along the way, it's jarring. You're like, what happened? And that would freak consumers out if you did that big of a drastic change. So if there does need to be a rebrand, I have a lot of different tips and tools on how to evolve correctly so that you don't get stuck with having to pay for a rebrand that's a drastic change and risk losing your audience at the same time.
Yeah, I totally get that. But this current one though, just to correct myself, this one has been stick for like 8 years. So I think
that's good.
That's for 20 years. So that's
good. That's good.
But
Okay.
it goes that you mentioned about narrative though. It's actually, I think it's also happened when like something really drastic change occur, and also like give you some ideas that this will be the turning point of where the new direction would go further. So you just want to make a big shift and just stick to it. That's what happened to me. And that's where we just like change everything and just go for it. So yeah.
And sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to do that, right? If there's a big change, you just got to do a rebrand and pray for the best.
Hopefully not too often. I hope I'm not going to do that again. But yeah, not going to do that. Because this is like have been already settled and clear. Like never feel like a part of life ever as in this current one. So it's actually very easy to work with. Like
that's good.
Current branding. Yeah, it's like a breathing. That's how I can explain. So I think I have done a pretty good job so far.
That's good. Love that. If you can feel it and you understand it, that's all that matters. And honestly, and it's true though, because you're gonna know who your target audience is, right? And you're gonna know the best way for you to communicate with that target audience that is natural to you, right? You have a natural way of communicating and you need to lean into that. The brand should be built around that, right? So if it is natural and it is an easy fit, then that's good. That means you're on the right track there.
I have another question though. I think this is something that I have seen my clients and many of my friends also experience this problem, building a company culture and also letting the whole company believing in this culture. Well, not really believing in, but like living within this culture, like how the founder have created. That's something interesting though. Like for example, my company, we don't have clock in and clock out time. Totally freedom. I just don't care. Like your project done, you can go rest. So that is like somehow that we communicate. But meeting time is like you just have to show up on time. So that's how the time wise is like that. And we have people working from all over the world. Like I'm in Bangkok right now. My team are in Philippines, in Germany, totally different time zone at all. But we have like one stick coming on the meeting. That's it. The rest, you're gonna stay awake until 4 a.m. That's you're on you. That's if you cannot sleep. Yeah, that's how I make decision.
Well, so I'm not an expert at all on organizational culture. However, I will say, and I've done some HR webinars, some global things there, where it does become imperative for as you grow your team for them to understand what that brand is, right? So it becomes on the CEO's responsibility to make sure that they are communicating that brand effectively internally just as much as they are externally. And there are differences to approaches there, and that should play into the culture as well. But if you hire people that are in line with the vision of the brand, then they're most likely going to understand that brand and do more productive work, right? They're going to love their job more because they're going to understand it and they're going to share the values of it, right? So I do think that that's super important to be able to communicate that internally.
You mentioned that because influencer branding is different than corporate branding. I just want to understand that.
Yes. Well, because so we're not, if we're in a corporation, we have a boardroom of people sitting around looking at each other and trying to figure out what personality we're going to place onto, let's say, a Jeep, right? And we're going to put this personality onto this Jeep in order to sell it to the target audience that we've chosen, right? That we want to hit this price point, this, whatever. And so for Jeep, for instance, right, we're going to come up with outdoorsy, rugged, adventurous, fun, whatever. Those are what we're going to be putting on that. That makes it easy because the Jeep doesn't talk back to us. Right? Like there's nothing there. It's an inanimate object, right? If you're working with a person who is the product that they're selling, right? Like anybody. I mean, you could talk about realtors, right? They're the product that they're selling. They're selling themselves. So it doesn't just have to be Beyonce, but anybody who is the face of their business and is selling themselves, they have a personality. They have a life of experiences, priorities, values, and whatever. Like they have all of these things that make them unique individuals. That's a lot. That's too much information for the consumer base to digest as fast as you need to when you're trying to be a brand, right? So my job is to take all of that and streamline it into 4 or 5 pillars that are going to turn that person into a product, like a Nike swoosh, right? That's the goal. So in that regards, it's very different because you're dealing with a personality that already exists and a life that already exists and a communication style that already exists. So everything kind of comes in a different order as well. Like I don't just get to dictate the target audience for that, so, there's a little bit of cyclical play there. You have to check, okay, this is what we think. We hypothesize this will be the target audience, but it might not be once we get done with what we're working on, and trying to streamline this product, it might shift. So all of those things are a little bit unique.
In case anyone want to buy your book or want to work with you, where can they follow you then or reach out to you even?
So the best place is my website. So it's thebrandmanagement.com, which is www.thebrandmgmt.com. So it's the shortened version. And there, if they want to get the book, there is a free chapter download there. And if they want to get that checklist I was mentioning earlier, that's also a free download there. And they can reach out on the website if they want to reach out to work with us on a brand development package. And then, and the book is available everywhere. So the book is available on Amazon or Hudson News or Target, Walmart, like anywhere in the world. And it is all Amazon global. And it is in paperback, ebook, audiobook, and now hardcover. So whatever format suits your needs.
Okay, I'm gonna get the hardcover soon, so definitely. Hopefully, it's gonna fit. I need to check that. So everyone is in the description and also on the show notes. So make sure that you grab that. And if you wanna check whether currently how do you do with the branding or how should you stick to branding or like reprioritize your branding and marketing currently, so check the website in the description so that you can go through what experts suggest you to do. So thank you, Laura, for joining Get Unstuck Podcast today, for sharing these goodies to us.
Anytime. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Have a great day ahead. I hope this episode inspires you wherever you are in your entrepreneurial journey so that you can have your business that supports your lifestyle. Get a show note at getunstuckmethod.com/podcast. Review what you have learned together today and start implementing right now. See it by yourself. The result of your consistent action are worth it. You deserve the freedom to enjoy your life. Until the next episode, let's get unstuck.